Welcome to Societal Shapers, a podcast by PL Kadila, the place to get inspired, find your purpose and courage, and get tools to become the next female leader, creating real results and meaningful changes. So this is our first session, and I'd like to introduce all of you to two people who've helped me a lot in wanting to make this happen. And the first is Rochafel in the Philippines. Say hi, Rosh.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for being in this podcast. And to my right here, I have my number one supporter and biggest fan, Christian de Kinderen, aka my husband. So he's going to be asking me some questions today. Would you like to say something, Chris?
Say something, Chris.
Well, that's really helpful. Okay, so without wanting to make this podcast any longer, so maybe we can dive straight into it. I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. So my name is PL Kadila, and I have 5 kids today, together with Chris. Chris is my second marriage, and I've been very inspired to be to launch something along these lines and along these messages, because I have been caught up in many different experiences and challenges, which in the other future podcasts we will slowly find out what they are. But the purpose of this podcast is just to introduce you guys to me and what this podcast is all about.
Sounds promising. So
let's hope so.
What motivated you to start this podcast?
Okay, so I made some notes so that I don't blabber. But okay, so I think, I've got three reasons or 3 why that actually that has pushed me to want to create this podcast. And the first is, I think, as we see today, so let's imagine a world where all of the women, all of the leaders in the world, all of the global leaders, all of the leaders in our country are women. Just take a moment to visualize that. Do you think that the world would look very differently today? I think it would, because the women just bring an entirely different kind of energy to the table. And I think that because we are lacking women in leadership roles today, and therefore it is a very masculine world, lots of egos, lots of trade wars, lots of tension going around. And I think having some feminine touch to it would really soften the entire world politics scene. And let's start from home, right? Let's just bring that back home in Malaysia and in this region in general. You can really count the number of women leaders, female leaders in either business leaders, government leaders, community leaders, thought leaders. A lot of the women typically hold the roles of activists or heads of NGOs, right? So in these roles, when you think about impact and you think about systemic or structural changes, they're not really in the power to do much, right? At the end of the day, they can lobby, they can make a lot of noise, they can talk about it, but it's, predominantly what we really need and what we really want is having that policy and regulatory changes that would support all the social injustices that we see today. So that's really reason number 1. And then today I read this recent article published by The Star, and it was written by an author called Lim Weng Mark, on having more young, accomplished professionals come forward as leaders. And I totally agree with this article, because there is a lack of potential and promising young future talent that can actually hone political leadership positions in this country. And I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but we are at our 8th Prime Minister today. And if you read the news, you'll know about, the whole process of how that happened. And it just seems that our politicians have been recycled since Independence Day. And it's as if we don't have any new or other talents, particularly coming from the younger generation. And I question why that is. So, one of the reasons to create this movement or community is to really gather around and attract strong young women, female leaders who have this burning passion within them to want to create sustainable changes. And for a lot of them, when you start young, you're all fired up, you're passionate about things, but then there's always other things. There's the environment, there's your there's life that happens. Either people get married or they get stuck in a job, and it's very difficult to do all these other things because then you get involved. We're trying to look to build this community of a trusted circle where women can feel safe, and it's a place where it's not about self-interest. It's about really wanting to nurture the right kind of values, principles, ethics within a person, within a young woman, so that they don't get distracted or they don't get easily swayed because the pressure is too much, or there's too many haters out there trying to push them down. So the idea is, you need to be able to equip yourselves with the right kind of knowledge, be able to communicate your message well so that it's palatable by a lot of people and you don't attack people. So there's like a whole strategy in terms of communicating your messages there. And then I think the final one is really about getting that clarity. So as the younger generation, the millennials are so as we know it and as we call them, a lot of them are very passionate about the current trends on climate change, on sustainability issues, on proponents of women inequality, etc. However, along the way, because of there's too much information out there, there's just a lot of distractions out there. People tend to go on this path, and then they either go down or they either go left and right, because it's very difficult to stay on track and on a path just because there's so many distractions. So I think coming back to this community, it would be a pool of women influencers who have the experience, who have the passion to want to give back, and who also want to really help these women become proponents of change and to install them in this leadership position. So just imagine also, for example, if you're thinking about, I want to nominate a woman to sit in the cabinet or to run for senator position or to hone this leadership position in this multinational. I have a very small pool of people that I can tap into. So in Malaysia, we have the 30% women on board who are typically groomed to basically become board of directors, but there's nothing like that for government positions or political positions. So the idea is, this community will also be able to have that pool of talent, women that people can tap into and basically push their name forward. And on top of that, I always get people asking me for recommendations for a particular job or to do certain things, and because I don't know people that well, so I sometimes hesitate to want to share or to recommend names, right? Because then it is my name on the line. So in order for me to want to recommend someone, I need to really know this person and know their values and principles in order for me to be able to recommend someone trustworthy and someone who can actually do the work and do the job. So that's basically the three main reasons of starting this podcast. And I hope I didn't bore my husband to death. So yeah.
So what would you like to achieve from this movement?
Okay, so what is it, right? There's a lot of things which I'd like to achieve from it. So going back to what I mentioned earlier, and I hope you've been listening, is really to create this talent pool of women for people to be able to tap into, right? Women who's beyond serving their own self-interest, women who smart, intelligent, and knows that they need to groom themselves from a very young age so that they don't make mistakes along the way. So, giving an example of, I grew up with my late father, who was an ex-politician, right? So he was a politician, and I kind of saw the insides of being a politician. It was very, very dirty and not nice at all. So I just imagine if it was a woman, this will be very tough and challenging for her. And along the way, you see that a lot of politicians typically get character assassinated, right? So people like to find all your dirty stuff in your closet and then share it to others and shame these people, and that's really bad. So for women, on top of having that pressure of responsibility and all that, then on top of that you have to deal with all these other things as well. And if you're a family, if you're a wife, you have to consider and think about your family, how this would really ruin your entire family and just your children, but knowing all these things that you did in the past. So one of it is to really help this woman to know that whatever it is, when you are living through your younger moments, of course, it's your rebellious period. You want to explore things and you're always curious about things, but just ensure that you do it with thought of how that would impact you in the future and how it wouldn't come back biting you in the butt later. So just things like that, right? So, information that you put out on social media, for example, you cannot retract those information. Once it's out, it's there, like for life. So it is really important to be very, very careful, in terms of wanting to protect your image, your credibility, your personal branding. And it starts from a really young age. And so really this podcast of movement is to attract, the young women from the ages of 16 all the way to like mid 20s, late 20s, to want to slowly nurture, grow, teach, support them, and then eventually they have to also be able to understand that in order to become a leader, there's a lot of other areas which you need to fulfill. So you need to make sure that your cups of happiness in terms of your finance, financial health, your well-being, your physical health, your quality of relationships with the people that you have, and just yourself in terms of your personal growth and personal development. You have to hone all of this as your core strength. And in order to do that, you don't want to, and you can't do it alone. And it will be a very lonely journey, and it will be very difficult. So the idea of this platform is basically to build a pipeline and talent of young women leaders, and also to create a support that at the end of the day, no matter what, these women know that you've got a group of these super women at the back supporting your journey all the way to the top.
So what are your key messages to your audience?
So I've been thinking about this for a very long time. And some of you might know Marie Forleo, and some of you might not. So Marie Forleo has this tagline that says, everything is figure-outable, right? And, I've been, mulling around in terms of, what is that message I want to get out to my audience? So really it's this, we all have this passion or fire inside us that burns, especially when we're young, when we see any form of social injustice, that will just fire us up. And so, imagine or visualize this fire within you that's just burning at a younger age, and as you grow older, dimming slowly, and then something happens to trigger, and then it burns into this huge fire again, and then life takes place, and then it starts to dim. So this is my final message: is never let your fire die. Ensure that it keeps on burning, no matter how dim it is. But come and join me and this community of women to keep that fire burning and burning big, because the world needs you.
Sounds amazing. Can't wait.
The whole purpose of this introductory podcast was also to let everyone know and share that you can't get things perfect the first time around. There's no such thing as perfection, yes. Right? So this is, the example of the raw form of us doing the first take. And I'm going to put it out there so everyone knows that, a lot of these things have been thought about, but it hasn't been perfected. It will be perfected along the way. There'll be ideas that comes up, but at the end of the day, trust in yourself. Trust that you have the right intention, and if you have your head screwed the right way around, eventually those results are going to come through. And that's why our tagline is, it is purpose, courage, and results. That's what it is, right? Find your purpose, and you got to get that courage, and you got to get those results, because it's not about impact, right? So how do you measure impact? It's very difficult. You want to see things, you want to see real changes, real systemic changes. So ladies, or young girls out there, I hope you tune in, and I hope to hear from you soon. Lots of love. Any final words?
Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to all my social media channels.
And to mine.
Yes.
Jalil River.
Okay, so that's it really. Thanks so much, Rosh, for tuning in. Thanks, Chris.
See you around.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with your friends. Be sure to tune in to the next episode, and to find out how to be part of Societal Shapers, head to www.plkadilla.com and check out our coaching programs. Catch you soon!